Hi everyone, I'm happy to virtually welcome you all to today's Ad Art Show 2020 Lunchtime POV from MvVO Art. My name is Emily Anastasi from the MvVO Art team, and it's my pleasure to introduce today's weekly episode, hosted by Dr. Erica Wong of To Practice Practice and Alexis Hyde of Softcore LA, titled Opportunities, Where Are They? Welcome everyone, let's get started.
Thank you.
Hi, Alexis.
Hey, Erica.
So,
Should we talk about opportunities?
Yes. So what sort of opportunities are we talking about? What do you think?
I mean, there's quite a few. I think let's talk about the opportunities in terms of maybe showing your work and getting your work in front of people. Because I think that I think that a lot of artists and people have the misconception that the only way you can get your work in front of someone is via a gallery show or a museum show. And while that's great, and absolutely look for those, sometimes you can have open calls. A lot of things are happening digitally right now, and it's a great way to form relationships with galleries and curators on Instagram and social media at the moment. There's also more that you can do, and that can include studio visits and outreach to people to invite them to studio visits, or showing your work digitally, or having your own kind of pop-up exhibition. You don't actually need a gallery to have an excuse for people to see your art.
No, and I also think that to really set up, you need to think about what you want your goals to be, because the opportunity isn't necessarily always defined by what we see in public or what we learn in art school, which is, oh, we have to be represented by a gallery, and then we somehow magically maybe get into an auction very, very far down the line in your career, and maybe we'll be representing our country in a biennale very, very far down the line. But I think that in the immediate, that there are different opportunities based on exactly what you're saying, that getting a curator to come to your studio can actually be an opportunity. And they don't necessarily always have to be these, what I call going to the castle, because they're really big, hard to reach goals. So in terms of opportunities, for instance, having a curator come to you, how is that an actual opportunity for someone who is an early career artist?
So it's a couple things. I mean, it's initially, and at the very base of this pyramid of what you can get out of having a studio visit with a curator, gallerist, or even another artist, is it's an opportunity to talk about your art. If you go to art school, you absolutely have your art crits and you're used to defending your work, but that's a muscle that if you don't work it out, you will lose it. And it's important to keep that dialogue going. Also, having other people look at your work, it's another way to see what people are seeing, because it's, you have an internal narrative which might be different than what other people are seeing. So that's just great to have that kind of, information exchange and conversation. But also, if they're coming in, maybe they know someone who's looking for work that looks like yours, or that would fit into a collection thematically. Maybe they have a show coming up that it would fit into it. But also, just because they don't have a show that's fitting into it at that moment, because you don't know what their workload is or their schedule is for their programming, that doesn't mean down the line it's always a no. Maybe it's a no for now, and it has nothing to do with your work. So, you're building relationships and your network for long term. These are people you can follow up with as you build new work. These are people you can follow up with, we discussed this. Here's some edits I made to the work because of your feedback. I really appreciate it. These are people you can grow with, and you can ask them questions. And it's funny because we had our episode that dropped today with art consultant Christina Hirakawa. She really re-emphasized people who get into the art world, we want to help each other. We believe in art. And if you ask us questions, we'll give you feedback. If you follow up, we'll look at your work. So building those relationships is super core to your practice, even though it's not art making. These opportunities, these conversations, and these relationships really can help your practice build, because you never know who they might be able to introduce you to as well, who might have something for you now.
No, for sure. And I think that to expand on talking to curators, what I really learned to set the foundation of what a practice is to be able to read, to write, to on top of making, and you also need to be able to talk about your work. And I think understanding those four pillars, which for me defines what a practice or a studio practice is, really sort of also opens the doors into understanding different opportunities. Because if you are able to comfortably write, and I genuinely think that no one is super comfortable in writing, but like if you're able to write in a capacity, you can write reviews, you can write, and those are different sets of opportunities that actually is that will help with your studio practice as well. Being able to write, to formulate those thoughts and have that narrative, understanding how to go and structure things is actually really useful in terms of making, because the research that comes into it, it's just, it opens your mind. You're looking at things that you don't know or you didn't know, or things that you already knew, and you form a different opinion with time. So I also think that that's like really useful in terms of navigating and looking for different opportunities within the industry.
Absolutely. Because also if you have aspirations as an artist, you'll be growing, your practice will be expanding, and that constant investigation, those constant conversations are going to help you grow. And that's going to be really important. So you really do have to, that's another thing that, they call it practice for a reason, right?
No, for
You
sure.
got to keep doing it.
And so therefore, where are the actual opportunities? And we really need to sort of be very succinct. So we've talked about reaching out to curators, asking them to come to the studio. If you have a studio, if you don't have a studio, you can have like a one-to-one conversation with somebody as well, and just show them your work. Writing, I think there are quite a lot of writing opportunities, and it's not necessarily reviews. What other writing opportunities do you think are out there?
I mean, I know quite a few artists who are looking for help writing about their work, actually. And it's hard. I think we all know this. It's really hard to do a self-investigation and write about your own work succinctly, but it is a little bit easier to do it about someone else because it's a little bit less precious to you. So, having those kinds of conversations about other artists' work also is really great, because you're learning more and you're evolving your thoughts and things, but then also you're practicing the actual like writing and having conversations and developing relationships with other artists, which can also be extremely formative. So those kinds of writing situations can be really helpful. And also you can just write, for yourself. I mean, I found when I had, like my blog, or even like, I know people do these on TikTok and Instagram also, like they're talking about other art that they've seen, they're going back and they're looking at, the classics, you're talking about like just one piece of art that they like. Why do they like it? And having that, and is it for yourself? Sure, it's also for your audience. And this is another thing that is an opportunity that you don't even realize you're making for yourself, because when you put your thoughts and your work and your actual artwork and your writing and your thoughts out there, people can find it. And that's how you find your audience. That's how you find your peers. And that's how you can also grow your network and your opportunities. And this is how people can find you, because if you don't put these out there, especially now since we can't go to galleries, we can't introduce ourselves at a museum, we can't, meet someone at an after party or, whatever we used to be doing. We have to use the tools that are available to us, and that's social media, and that's the internet, and that's newsletters, and you can use those as opportunities to make connections. And, if you take advantage of that, relationships will grow, and you don't know what can come out from that.
And that really touches on the idea of marketing yourself, which is not always the easiest. I find that as artists, we're very introverted. I mean, I'm definitely an introvert, even though I don't necessarily always seem like it, but I am. So social media, again, I think when you're comfortable with speaking with curators or actually your peers, collectors about your work, it comes a lot easier when you're marketing yourself. I think it's sometimes the word marketing, it's almost like offensive, because you're like, what do you mean I have to go and market myself? Already made the work, already made the market, didn't I? And
exactly.
No, because you do actually physically need to be able to talk about why you're different from the next artist. And you are, like, you definitely are different from the next artist, but being able to go and differentiate that and talk about that succinctly to different audiences is very important.
It is, because if your bio is I'm 26 and I live in North Carolina, that tells me nothing about your practice, your artwork, what themes are you investigating, what mediums are you using, what kind of, artwork are you producing. And that's, a bio is marketing. Your artist statements are marketing. Describing your work, titling your work is marketing. And all of these things, they do all fall under that. Same thing with social media. If you have an Instagram that's a bunch of fun, quirky pictures that you love that have nothing to do with your art, other people who might be seeking you out, say you reached out and you were like, I want to have a studio visit, and I go check your Instagram and I'm like, I don't know who this person is as an artist, you might kind of lose that. So you really want to think about, the way you market. So when people find you, they're finding the right things. You're controlling the narrative the same way you control your artwork and what you put out there. When you tell people what your themes are, what those, what your artist statement is, you're controlling it, and then people can't misconstrue. And that's important. And that's also why these conversations about your art are so important, because you don't know what people could be misconstruing until people see it and until they interact with it. And also you might be exposed to some like really great thoughts that you can kind of make a little note of they said XYZ about my piece, and that can just kind of get a little slip into your artist statement. It's all, back and forth, guys.
No, it's true. And I think that, if you're having a really hard time with the word marketing, just think of it in a different way. And it's, how are you talking about this? How are you going to talk about yourself so somebody else understands you? How are you going to talk about your work for someone who doesn't come from the arts to understand you? I think that's really important, to be able to go and use language in a different capacity. Don't always assume that people understand your work, because I would say like 99% of the time people don't. No. And if you just understand that they don't necessarily always understand where you're coming from, and you need to set the foundation in order for the conversation to start, that in itself can be marketing. But really, if you want to feel really comfortable about talking about it, it's just you're talking about you and your work, and those things already.
Absolutely.
You know yourself, and you know what you're making, why you're making them. So, if like changing the words help a little bit, I think do that.
They absolutely can. Because I mean, if you need a really, my favorite example of all contemporary art are when people, try to talk to me about the pile of candy in the corner at the museum. And if you don't know what it is, it's a pile of candy in the corner at the museum. But if you're familiar with Francis Gonzalez Torres, you know what it's about, the whole thing. But there is a marketing behind that. Again, it's not a great word, but it's the way he talks about it. It's the way he describes the work and the context of his entire career and the themes he investigated. And we know the relationships he's portraying, and we know how he's doing it. And that helps us have context, because that's the other thing, is you want people to have context about 100%. Your work. So they're coming from it from the proper angle.
100%. So today we talked about, what are our opportunities? Where are they? How do you find them? And how do you market yourself? I think those are very useful, tangible bits of information that you can definitely use when you're trying to go and identify different types of opportunities, and not always just think that we're bound by this sort of social reality that the art world has sort of like placed on us, to think that the only opportunity is being represented by a gallery, is going to get a museum show, it's being signed to go and be at the Venice Biennale. Like, those aren't the only like goalposts that means opportunities. Opportunities are a lot of things. And for me, I think is also, don't forget that opportunities might be tangential to what you're doing. So it might not be like directly, oh, I work in a gallery, or I'm speaking with a curator. It could also be like doing life drawing, like being a model. It could be a lot of different things that is still within the industry. So
exactly.
That's the topic today of opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you so much.